It's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes. It is getting so hot. Da na 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 na. What's up, guys? Today we have some super hot fire. We are going to be talking about the new draft league that I am helping out with slash an admin called the Sinnoh Draft Bonanza, and this is actually a Gen 4 draft league. So it's been a ton of fun to prep for. I already played the first game, just really fun to be a part of, and something I'm looking forward to being able to make content around for this season. Um, as you can see, the theme of this team builder is just super hot fire because this whole draft is absolute flames, except for one thing that we'll be talking about a little bit later. But it has recovery, it has hazards, it has more hazards, it has a spinner, which is super high value for tier 4. The best, in my opinion, available ghost for the tier that it was in, and so much more. It is missing out on a little bit of speed as well, though. So two things that are not quite so fire. They're a bit cold, but otherwise, it's so hot. It's so hot. So we're starting off with the first pick I made in the draft, and one of the most valuable Pokemon in Gen 4, and that is Dragonite. So I think Dragonite is the best Pokemon in the format that we had, because Tyranitar is banned, Jirachi is banned, Salamence is banned as well, and Latios, who is currently available in the tier, is also banned. I'm trying to think, I'm just going to double check the tiers, see what else was banned that would normally be in tier 1. Well, obviously we banned Swalot as well. Swalot the Menace. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that those are the bans. And so, because those guys are... Oh, Heatran as well. Because those three are out of the way, who are normally in UU, I think Dragonite is the best remaining pick. And that is because of a few reasons. One, Fairy type doesn't exist yet. So there's no Dragon immunity, and Dragon only has one resist in the entire game, and that is the Steel type. And Steel types are also super limited. All of the usable ones are pretty much limited to tier 1 and 2, and then in the tier 3 that we had, you had Steelix, and I'm pretty sure that was the only tier 3 Steel. So some people are left without a Steel. Everyone only has one Steel. I don't think there are any double Steel teams, and so that makes the Dragon type just so valuable. So before we do much more talking about the Dragonite, I'm going to go into the tier structure that we had for this draft. So there were two tier 1s, that is Dragonite and Clefable, two tier 2s, Registeel, Nidoqueen, two tier 3s, Hippopotas, Spiritomb, one tier 4, which was Armaldo for me, and then you had 300 points, or no, you had 400 points for 3 free picks. Tier 2s cost 160, tier 4s cost 40, and tier 3s cost 100. So it was 300 points for 3 picks. And so I ended up opting for tier 4, tier 2, tier 3. Omastar is the tier 3, Manectric is the tier 4, and Mesprit is the tier 2 in that scenario. So going back to Dragonite, a few things that make it a little bit different from current gen. Hidden Power still exists, so I have to be worried about people just throwing Hidden Power Ice onto most of their Pokemon to try to counteract this, because this is the biggest threat that I have on my team. Now, along with that, Hidden Power Ice actually has a 70 base power total, so not only is it a 4 times effective move, but as opposed to the normal 240 base power, we're actually going to be dealing with a 280 base power effective attack against the Dragonite. There are no hidden abilities yet, so Dragonite doesn't have multi-scale, and that means it's going to be only inner focus, but that means we're not going to get flinched out here, so bring in your Togekiss on me. I dare you, KJ. Anyways, The upsides to Dragonite, other than that, it is the only Dragon Dance user in OU normally, other than Gyarados, I believe. Yeah, so those are the two Dragon Dance users, but it has the Dragon typing, which gives it a lot more defensive utility, as opposed to the Gyarados, which has the weakness to Electric, weakness to Rock. Actually, I'm seeing a lot of the same weaknesses, so maybe Gyarados is just fine otherwise. But it has the ability to spam, both on the physical side, Outrage, Earthquake, Extreme Speed, all super valuable moves that I can bring almost any week. But on the special side, you can even put on Fire Blast, Ice Beam, Surf, and Draco Meteor. And in this gen, Fire Blast is 120 base power, along with Hydro Pump and Thunder. Surf, Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam are all 95 base power, and Draco Meteor is 140 base power. So anytime that you're clicking some of these special moves, they are absolute nukes when they drop, because that little difference in base power might not seem like much, but when it actually hits your Pokemon, it's insane. It's absolutely devastating. So Dragonite, great member of the team. I've been talking about it for a little bit too long, been a little bit rambly. We're going to move on to the next Pokemon. So Clefable here. It is a normal type in this gen, because the Fairy type doesn't exist yet. But it still has the Magic Guard ability, and it and Clefairy are the only Magic Guard Pokemon in the game. But Magic Guard is even better in this gen than it is in later gens, because not only does it have the effect of not taking damage from anything not related to actually an opponent attacking you or yourself struggling, or substitute for that matter, but if you get paralyzed, your speed still drops, but you never get fully paralyzed. It's impossible for Clefable to be fully paralyzed if it has the Magic Guard ability and not its Q-Charm ability. Paralysis actually has another mechanic as well, so we'll talk about that while we're on the topic. Instead of being the half speed, or halving the speed of a paralyzed Pokemon, as it is in the current gen, in Gen 4, it quarters the speed of the Pokemon. Also, electric types can be paralyzed by Thunder Wave, or just paralyzed in general, and that's something that got changed in later generations. But Clefable here is something that I wanted because I have a sand team, and so the sand, I didn't want to be whittling down the majority of my Pokemon, and so I have a lot of sand immunities to pair alongside that. Magic Guard helped out with that tremendously. I wanted Wish Pass potentially to Registeel because it doesn't have its own recovery, and in this generation, keeping your Steel types healthy is really important, as well as keeping your Ghost type healthy for reasons that we'll talk about later. Its ability to soft boiled, spread paralysis itself, because there are the only paralysis absorbers are ground type in this generation, because electric types can be paralyzed, or Clefable's a good paralysis absorber as well. Its access to recovery, just so many things about it mesh so well with this team. And because the sand is going to be permanent, something we'll talk to you about with Hippopotas and the reason I drafted it, it's really, really good synergy with the rest of this team. Next we got Registeel, the big boy in UU himself. So Registeel is the best steel, I think, in DPP UU. That's just because of its tremendous bulk, its physical attack and special attack, as well as its physical defense and special defense. Both of those kind of separately, defenses and offenses, share the same stats with each other. So 75 for offenses, 150 for defenses, along with 80 HP, makes this thing super bulky, and honestly it hits hard enough for it to be able to really do anything that it wants. Like, you can use curse sets. In the first week that I've played already, I had Lumberry, Hidden Power Flying for Breloom, along with Explosion, and Explosion is something that we need to talk about. So in Generation 4, as opposed to the normal 250 base power that it has in the current gens. Explosion has an additional effect of having your opponent's defense, or effectively doubling the damage that you deal before the damage is applied. So anytime that you click Explosion, you're using what is effectively a 500 base power move on your opponent. And Ready Steel having access to that is just so good. It's insane. It's also a rocker, and rocks are really good for reasons we'll talk about later. Even better in this generation than they are in current generation. In fact, they're so powerful that Pokemon that are weak to rocks are almost completely invalidated unless they have other strengths that are really positive. In general, Registeel is a great steel type. It's important to have a steel type as a Dragon Resist, and so it was one of my earliest pickups in this draft. Nidoqueen is something that I picked up because in Tier 2, I thought that it was also a great option. The access to Toxic Spikes really makes it valuable. The ability to roar opposing threats out and kind of shuffle things around the sand while also being immune to sand itself made it a really nice fit for this team. It being a grounded poison, it can come in and absorb the Toxic Spikes as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't have Sheer Force yet, so it's relying on Poison Point, but even Poison Point can punish Pokemon U-turning out physical attackers, and in general, its typing is also really positive. Hippopotas honestly doesn't have a ton of utility in terms of what moves it's going to be using and how it'll be contributing to the team as how do I put this? Let's say an active participant of fights. It's more going to come in, set up sand, and in Gen 4 and Gen 5 for that matter, it changed in Gen 6. Any weather abilities are permanent, and so when Hippopotas comes in and Sandstream gets activated, it doesn't get deactivated until either the battle ends or your opponent or yourself uses a different weather or brings in a different weather setter. And so the permanent sand that's going to be up is going to be negating opponents' leftovers recovery if they have it, or chipping them down by 6.25% every turn. It's going to be boosting the SPDEF of my 2 rock types by 1.5 times, which makes them significantly more bulky. And in general, Hippopotas is going to have the ability to toxic opponents, slack off, and try to keep relatively healthy. Even though it's not the bulkiest, it'll take a hit or two, and then it'll be able to also just roar opponents out, try to disrupt the flow of their gameplay, set up rocks. That's what Hippopotas is looking to do for this team. Spiritomb. By far one of my favorite Pokemon on this team and just in general. Ever since I played Platinum and I ended up getting this thing, I thought it was just one of the absolute coolest designs. And so for the first time, I will actually have drafted it and have the opportunity to use it. Spiritomb's role on the team is one of a spin blocker. So far we talked a little bit about Toxic Spikes and Stealth Rocks, and those are really important for your team to be able to set up, because within a game they can do as much as 150, almost 200% of your opponent's health as damage if you're switching. It punishes switches, and switches are one of the most important things in Pokemon. And so once you set those hazards up, you want to keep them up. Defog in this generation doesn't remove the hazards from your side of the field, only from your opponent's side of the field. And so if you've set up Stealth Rocks and then you use Defog, you're removing the rocks from your opponent's side of the field only. And so if they've set up rocks on yours and you use Defog, it still stays. But Rapid Spin is the only form of hazard removal that actually works to remove hazards from your side of the field. And so having Spiritomb as a spin blocker, and one that has a really nice dual typing as well, that has no weaknesses in this generation, is really great. Its offenses are enough that before the power creep of later generations, it's able to run offensive sets and actually do a good amount of damage. it's a ghost type as well that's also immune, or sorry, not immune. It is not weak to pursuit. So one of the things that often happens in Gen 4 is when you bring in your ghost type to try to counter your opponent's spinner, it's very easy for them to double out into their pursuit trapper. And so if they go for pursuit, you're either going to be taking most of your HP and damage or all of your HP and damage depending on who the pursuit trapper is. But in Spiritombe's case, because it has a secondary dark typing on top of its ghost typing, it's neutral to pursuit. And not only that, but it has it itself. So it's not weak to the opposing ghost types, and it's also able to pursuit trap them in if need be. Such a great pickup. Next we got our Meldo. This is my first tier 4 that I picked up. I grabbed it because of the synergy with the sand and because of the fact that it gets spin. Tier 4 was honestly really shallow, it seemed at the beginning. And so I knew from pretty early on that I wanted to grab our Meldo. And so I ended up getting it pretty early in the draft. And I'm really happy just what it does for the team. It is my main specially defensive wall in the sand, just because it gets that 1.5 times boost in Spadef, and so it's really able to take hits and then get the spin off. So it has that kind of dual purpose where it's not really threatening the opponent when it comes in, because it is mostly going to be invested into bulk most times I bring it, but just the ability to eat a hit, try to remove the hazards, not die to most ghost types that end up coming in to try to block the spin, and actually be able to do pretty decent damage with Rock Slide, Stab, or X Scissor, Ghost Resist X Scissor, just Earthquake, different things like that, makes this a really valuable Pokemon in my eyes. Manectric now, another tier 4. This guy is really fun to use. Its speed tier is just enough that it's actually decently fast in this generation. Reason being, it's just being outside of base 100 in Gen 4 before a lot of faster mons got introduced is a really good speed tier. And so being a tier 4 mon and relatively cheap, and having that speed tier while also having 105 special attack, which is again pretty decent, is really nice because this thing gets electric, so Thunderbolt primarily. Maybe you can tech on Thunder or Discharge if you're trying to fish for the paras, but Thunderbolt is really nice. Gets both Flamethrower and Overheat, which are buffed in damage this generation, 95 and 140. And then it can run a hidden power of whatever type you want to hit the ground types that are going to be countering your electric type stab. So most often it is going to end up running probably HP Ice or HP Grass, but sometimes you can tech a specific hidden power to be able to counter a certain Pokemon, and this is going to be my primary hidden power abuser, quote unquote. Next we got Masquerade. This thing is one of my fighting resists for a lot of the Pokemon on my team. It was also another ground immunity, which is the reason that I picked it up. Decent speed tier at about 80-85, can't remember which one it is exactly. Lets it be used as a Scarfer, and it has a decent amount of power as well as a really good Scarf typing for in Psychic, because it's only resisted by Steel and then itself, Psychic, and Dark, who's immune to it, but it can pivot out with U-turn, bait those Pokemon in, and then I can end up punishing them with stuff like Nidoqueen or Manectric. I don't know about that. That probably is a little bit of a stretch, but I really like Masquerade, mostly for the ground immunity. It has enough power that it is passable, has the option to set up Stealth Rocks, Taunt. No setup yet, unless it gets Calm Mind, but I'm not too sure. Next we got the Omastar. King Helix, sorry, Lord Helix. Please don't hate on me in the comments for messing that up. Himself. This guy I picked up because I needed a water type. I wanted something that got the Spadef boost from Sand, or that was at least a selling point of him for me. and I really wanted to have the option to spike stack my opponent. And so Omastar was what came to mind. It ended up also punishing opposing Rain, so that if they do set up Rain and I'm able to take out their Rain Sweeper, then Omastar can come right in and I can start using my own Swift Swim Rain boosted water moves against the team. So that's something that I really like about this guy, and just in general having the utility of spikes in a generation where it's really difficult to get rid of hazards on your side of the field. I think that Omastar is just a really great pickup. So overall, I'm really happy with this team. Looking forward to being able to put out content for the different games that we'll be playing this season. Hopefully we'll make playoffs, um, and just have a good time with it. Hope that you guys enjoyed. I know this video is a bit longer and a bit rambly. I wasn't too sure what to deliberate on and explain and what to just kind of blow past, but hopefully it was entertaining. See y'all later. Bye bye.